Hi, I am Gavin Luoma. I'm a third grade teacher. This is week one of the summer learning program. This is for math for the grade band of 3 to 5. Other grade levels are more than welcome to watch. It doesn't really matter to me. I mean, I find this lesson rather interesting. This lesson is actually something I recall having done for many years. I know we tend to do it right before winter break for some reason. It's just sort of a nice little break. But we're going to be talking a little bit about two-dimensional shapes today. Two-dimensional shapes today. What you're going to need is you're going to need a piece of paper. Now, I had to cut off one side of the piece of paper because I didn't tear it out that well. If you're taking it out from a notebook, just make sure that it is straight with no little frilly things. It actually works slightly better with if you have like a piece of colored construction paper. That's actually a little bit better. Um, You'll have to be a little bit patient with me, this technology stuff and going back and forth between different programs. I'm still struggling with, but I'm learning all these different things as I struggle. Some things wind up being just miserable failures, while other things wind up being pretty cool. As of right now, I have to sort of switch between program and program, so there might be a little bit of lag time, but I think it'll be worth it in the end. So just make sure, and remember when you're actually watching this, you can actually press the pause button, you can go back and then watch it again. I know, I mean, you might want to watch me, 100 times over and over again. You can just put it in an infinite loop and you can watch me all day long and you can have a great old time with that. So let's start off now all right, the first thing that I want to look at is going to be a picture that I have here. So let's hide that. So as we're walking around, let's get rid of that thing. All right, as we're going around, we can see different things in our environment that relate to math. Now, as we look at this picture, there's all kinds of shapes we can think about. So let's move this first question over. So where do you see four-sided shapes in the picture? And what are the names of the four-sided shapes? So as I look at this picture, I can see, I see all these little pieces right there. Those are shapes. Oh, I see, I see that whole entire window right there and all the little things in there. Those are also four-sided shapes. I see this little thing down there in that corner. That's also a four-sided shape. And what would the names of those be? More four-sided shapes in the background. So there's all sorts of four-sided shapes you can wind up seeing there. So the next thing that I sort of wonder about, besides just four-sided shapes, is also where do you see parallel and perpendicular lines on that? So parallel lines, if you don't remember, let's see how well I can draw. Oh, I can't really. Well, they're equal distance apart. So, and the distance between parallel lines is going to be perpendicular lines. So where do you see parallel lines and perpendicular lines? And perpendicular lines, let's see if I can draw this really carefully. Oh, perpendicular lines are where they form right angles. So where in the picture do you see parallel lines and where do you see perpendicular lines? So there's all sorts of stuff. Oh, it sounds like there is somebody bothering my dog right now. All right, so and the last question that I have when I look at this picture is, what are some names of quadrilaterals? Quadrilaterals in this shape. So quadrilaterals are going to wind up being four-sided shapes. And how are they the same from each other and how are they different. So when we classify quadrilaterals, there are different ways we can classify them. There are different ways that we can actually see how they're the same and how they're different. I see that, you know, I see a square, I see a parallelogram, I see a rectangle. What other ones do I see in there? Oh, I can kind of make a trapezoid in there if you look really closely. So there's all types of shapes that we can see as we go around our environment. And now let's go back to our normal lesson. And so let me stop this part of it right now. Okay, so let's get out of that. Go back to me. Oh, that's not me. Oh, there's me. So as you're going around and you're looking at things, most of the time there are patterns and shapes that you can see everywhere. So specifically with two-dimensional shapes, they tend to be flat. Well, they are flat. But as you're looking around, like I know when I was your age, or third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, I'd always like look up at the ceiling and count how many tiles, and then I'd actually count how many tiles there were to actually see that type of thing. So as you're looking around, and just if you just get your mind a little bit on math here and there as you're looking at things, you'll wind up remembering and getting better at it. Sometimes, like when I look at a shape or I see something, it's just like, I kind of remember that. And you know what? There's this wonderful thing. If you have a computer, well, if you're watching this, you probably have a computer. You can probably do a Google search on it and try to figure out what that shape is. So let's get to the actual lesson. So you're actually going to need that piece of paper now. So if you have that piece of paper, you're going to want to have it out. Now, I don't expect you don't need to write anything on it. I wrote some on my paper, but I expect you to sort of do the folds as you do that. And that's going to wind up being an assignment, is you're going to have to show the piece of paper all folded in that. So let's wind up getting that part right here. Okay, all right, let's see. All right, so now would be the time that you need your line piece of paper. So as you can see, this is my line piece of paper. I sort of trimmed it off here. Some of you have holes. If you have a little frayed mark, you're going to want to wind up getting rid of that. I always sort of like to start with the red line at the top where the holes normally are on a piece of paper. This one doesn't. If you have just a regular piece of paper, that's fine as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about two-dimensional shapes. And again, this is a two-dimensional shape. It's a flat surface and a plane. There's a couple things that we can talk about here. We can talk about how to figure out the perimeter of this shape. We would need to go the whole entire distance around the shape. For the area, I would need to multiply two adjacent sides with each other. Two adjacent sides to each other to figure out the area. So moving on from that, let's first fold this in half. And we want to make sure and line it up just so. And if you notice where that fold is, that's going to be a line of symmetry. And if you were to fold this piece of paper this direction, you'd have another line of symmetry on this shape. There's also a couple of other things that I notice in this shape, like completely. This is a quadrilateral, 4 sides. It is a rectangle. And if you notice that on each of these corners here, that corner, this corner, this corner, and this corner, they're all right angles. They're all right angles. They're all 90 degrees. You'll also notice where, let's see if I draw a line on this, I wind up having sets of parallel lines here. And the distance between parallel lines are going to wind up being perpendicular to each other, So the first thing that you should have is you should have your piece of paper and it's folded in half and you unfold it again like this. So we talked about the different right angles. Let's try to form another angle right here. So I'm going to put this piece of paper down and I'm going to fold it along right there. So the one side is going to be right along the middle right there. Now, if you notice right here, that's the 90 degrees. And this angle right here now, you can see where that fold mark is, that's 90 degrees. But that whole entire angle right there, that whole entire angle right here is going to wind up being greater than 90 degrees, so that's an obtuse angle. So this is a right angle, this is an obtuse angle, obtuse. We also talked about line of symmetry, line of symmetry. We also talked about parallel lines. And I'm just writing this stuff down so I can remember what I wound up talking about, and just so I can do that. Now, I see that that is an obtuse angle. I like things nice and symmetrical. So symmetrical. So what happened on this side, I'm going to fold right here, and it's going to wind up showing another angle that I wanted to talk about here. So if you notice this angle right here at the point, once I wind up folding this angle down, so you want to fold your piece of paper down like so. You'll notice that this angle right here is going to be acute angle. Acute, and that is less than 90 degrees. So right now you have this shape. And now we have a shape that doesn't have just 4 sides, it has 5 sides. So 5 sides is going to wind up being a pentagon. And again, these are both sides of these are symmetrical on that line of symmetry. So if I was to fold it over, if I did this right, if I was to fold it back over, you'd notice that they're the same exact size. Now, here comes the next fold that's a little bit trickier. I'm going to take this side and I'm going to line it up with that line of symmetry that we made. So if I fold it down like so, now again, I've made that angle even smaller, but I want it to be symmetrical. So I'm going to wind up folding it down on this side as well. Now, one of the questions my students had, and I'm not sure of the exact answer of, when does this become not a two-dimensional shape? A two-dimensional shape is flat. I have multiple layers. I don't know if you have more than one layer of two-dimensional shapes. Does it come three-dimensional? I'm not sure. That's a good thing to think about. And so after we have this all symmetrical again, oh, I forgot to talk about, did I forget to talk about that? No, I did. There's another, well, first of all, you can have intersecting lines. Those are just lines that just intersect like that. But you can also have perpendicular lines where they form right angles. So perpendicular lines form right angles. Perpendicular lines form right angles. So let's check to make sure that our shape is going to wind up being symmetrical again. So let's fold it on itself, and it does look like it is symmetrical. It's the same on one side as the other side. Now here is kind of a little bit of the trickier part right there. I want to have, it's about maybe a centimeter. A centimeter is 2.54 centimeters equals an inch. So I want enough so I leave a little bit of a lip so I can grab it there. So I just fold it over like so. And I want it to be the same on the other side, so I flip it over. And then I just line it up like so. And again, sometimes you might just go, I didn't catch those steps. And if you didn't catch those steps, you can just press the pause button and you can go back in the video and you can just repeat it. And that's really pretty important. So as you can see, from your two-dimensional piece of paper, you wound up making this geometric shape. And I'd call this a paper airplane. So if you notice, this is one of the first paper airplanes that I learned how to fly. Your assignment is going to wind up being to create this airplane, and then you take a photo of it, and then you're going to wind up sending it to Matt Johnson, and I will provide you with that email. But let me show you what you wind up getting. Give me 1 second. I wasn't quite prepared for this. So when you turn that in, you'll be provided with some materials so you can make a few other, a little bit different airplanes. Now let me show you them. So here's the one we made in class, but you'll get sent some stuff. So here's another one. So this one actually was pretty easy to make, but some of the ones that flew the best, like this one, oh, that one's pretty neat. I would suggest on this one you actually use your scissors. But if you can see, it's not perfect. I struggled a little bit with making this. So that one's really a pretty neat one. And again, you'll get an instructional video to make that one. Here's another one. Now, I really struggled on this one. This one flies incredibly well. It does. But I've struggled a little bit with making those folds correct. And if you notice, it's not quite symmetrical, but it flies fantastic and well worth the effort. Here's another one. And then the last one. So if you do the assignment where you take a photo of this airplane that you made, a basic one, you'll get the material so that you'll be able to, and a video to watch where you can actually make all of these different planes, which is a pretty neat thing. And again, on these ones, I had to press stop and go back a few times in order for me to be able to do these, but you'll get the colored paper, you'll get some stuff, so you'll be able to do this yourself. And let me stop this, if I can stop it, and go back to me. All right, let's see. Ahead of time, that way it was easier for me to sort of keep track of things and make comments while I was winding up doing it. Now, going back and forth and making these paper airplanes, I don't think you fully appreciate how much effort it really was, because I mean, I really struggled with making this one, although this turned out to be really the best flyer out of all of them. No, so it's not perfect, but yeah. So while I was making this video, I was making all sorts of mistakes, and I was having a hard time with doing this, and I realized that there are some videos that I normally show my kids at the beginning of the school year, and it has to do with sort of struggling, because making this video and then making these paper airplanes, you know, I made some mistakes, and then I struggled with.
Welcome! We're so excited you're joining our ranks. We could definitely use some help spreading our messages to math learners all around the world.
We know you've been doing some training, but we have one final task before you can go and save the world.
I'm ready to go!
How about we start with some non-math examples?
So you sit down like this, and you roll back, and you slap. Okay. Phew.
So, what did you think?
That was so cool. I was impressed that they kept going even when they were making mistakes.
Yeah, well, now it's time for a real Eucubian assignment. Kids doing math.
Oh, I know what to do. They're struggling. I'm gonna go help them.
No! Remember what we just saw? They were struggling and it was awesome.
And this is like exactly the same deal. It's just math.
Oh, I get it. I'm gonna try again.
Yeah.
Hey friends, what's up?
This is so hard.
My brain hurts. I'm tired.
I thought I knew this, but I just can't solve it.
That's great. I love to hear it. Being at the very, very edge of your understanding is actually when you learn the most.
Yeah, you're probably gonna make lots of mistakes, and that's awesome. If you were working on easier problems and getting everything right, you wouldn't be learning as much.
Yeah, remember when you were practicing, you were doing your jiu-jitsu, you were playing soccer, and you were practicing your glockenspiel? The three of you were really struggling, but that's because you were really learning. And this is exactly like that. Once this gets easy, because you've practiced so much, then you should move on to something harder so you can keep struggling.
I was going to come save you, but you don't need saving. You're doing great. You just have to keep reminding yourselves and each other that mistakes are good and struggling is actually fantastic for your brain. Soon these problems won't even be challenging anymore, and that's when you know you're ready to find some harder ones.
Cool.
That's really cool.
Whoa, that's so cool. I didn't see it like that.
Whoa, that's cool.
Researchers have studied people who've reached a very high level of achievement to see how they got there. And they found that nobody was born with a special brain, but they engaged in a very particular kind of practice. And the researchers described it like this. They said that the people who achieved the most were those who were always pushing at the edge of their understanding, making mistakes, correcting them, making more mistakes. They weren't getting work correct all the time, they were always struggling. They set high targets for themselves, and if they became stuck, they tried a different approach so that they could keep going. Researchers also found that there really are no limits to what people can do. When people don't go on to high achievement, it's usually because they give up, not because they've hit actual roadblocks that they can't get past. So always remember that when you're struggling, even if that can feel really hard, that's the very best time for your brain. And keep going. Never give up on maths. Always remember you can learn anything.
I talk with my students about math. You go, when does it become easy? When does it become easy? And in reality, once you get to something easy, you do something a little bit harder. And it's just a little bit harder and a little bit harder each time. And if you wind up practicing that, you'll wind up getting it. Pretty much the only way you're not going to wind up being really good at math, really good at math, is you give up. You just stop trying. Because if you do work and you practice, you're going to wind up doing it. It takes some struggle. It's not going to be perfect all the time. It's not going to be perfect all the time. You won't be perfect all the time. This video that I'm making is not perfect. I struggled with making it in the different parts of it. But in reality, you don't want to stop trying just because you think you're going to wind up making a mistake. That's the only real mistake that you can make, is to not try. So there is a struggle in math, and you want to be able to struggle. If you've only done stuff that's really super easy in math that you already kind of know it, you know what? You probably need to find yourself a little bit harder problems. And for those of you just go, it's impossible, it's impossible. If you start trying and practicing, you have teachers around you, you have parents around you, you have grandparents around you, you have all these people, you have friends. I mean, when I'm in my classroom, I know my friends, other students are the main teachers in the classroom. They'll help each other. So make sure and just keep on trying, keep on practicing. You want to wind up seeing things in math. Realize, I mean, I look at math as like a game. It's just a fun thing to do. It's just little puzzle pieces, little things that you can put together. It's nothing to get stressed about. You try stuff, you try to learn it. Now let's open up what the actual assignment is. So the assignment, let's see if I can view this a little bit different. So the assignment, so fit to screen. So your assignment for this first week is to follow along with the lesson and create the paper airplane from the lesson. So if you don't already have it made, you probably need to go back through that lesson. Now, some of you are really clever and actually already know how to make that paper airplane, and that's okay. You have some previous knowledge. And you need to take a picture of it and send that picture to this email address. Because I'm not sure if they're going to post it anywhere and stuff like that, but that's where that pause button comes into play. As a reward, the first 20 students to send a photograph will receive materials to help make more paper airplanes, And I'm not sure everything they're going to include. There might be tape, there might be scissors. I know there'll at least be colored paper, but we'll actually have to wait and see on that. Now, the video itself, and I'm not sure if they're going to post this, but again, you can press pause to make all those other paper airplanes, all you have to do is go to that link, and then you can make all these paper airplanes. And you know what? You can make the paper airplanes with just lined paper. There's no rule against that. Yeah, I mean, I want you to have fun doing this stuff, so you can just follow that link right there. So that was my lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. I will be doing my next lesson, which is on 3-dimensional shapes, which should be pretty entertaining as well. So make sure and have some fun outside. Don't watch the video screen all day long. Learn how to make those paper airplanes, and I mean, fly them around, have some fun. I mean, math is meant to make things and create things. That's what you use numbers for. So have a great day, a great week, and I will be back for the second week going over 3-dimensional shapes. So have a good day. My name is Davin Loma again, and I will see you next week. Bye.